Hey, this is Ken. As I sort of alluded to in my last Whole 30 video, I'm going to expand this channel out a bit. To be clear and upfront, I am not an expert in half the stuff that I'll talk about. I used to do this, I used to do that. I'm not an expert in anything. I have a lot of random thoughts. I thought about a lot of random things. And so when you see videos in the random thoughts playlist, it's just that. I'm not trying to say that I know what I'm talking about. There's probably more errors than I could possibly imagine what I say. Just sort of my hypotheses and ideas. And this will be the first one. So, I just finished reading about dark energy and dark matter. And, scientists talk all about how there must be there, even though we can't see or feel it, because of all the gravitational exertion that occurs. They just feel it must be there. I have issues with that. I think they don't understand what gravity is. I think they don't understand what electrons are. And I think that there might be a whole nother way of explaining this stuff. And I'll give that here. Now, again, I'm not a physicist. Yeah, I took some classes in college. Everyone did. Yeah, I did some quantum stuff. Not enough to be an expert or really understand it. So this is sort of a layman's concept. My concept is this. Electrons don't exist. Electrons are things that people have trouble with. They're in two places at once. They have random patterns. It's this bizarre thing that people don't understand. I don't think electrons exist. Instead, I think what happens is when you have two pieces of matter, say the atom of one molecule and the atom of another, that those two are, the nucleus, so the protons, neutrons, up quarks, down quarks, all that stuff. When those two objects are close enough to each other, they tear holes in the space-time fabric. And what they're doing is they're tearing a hole to try to get to each other. The bigger they are, the more holes they tear. Those holes are random, just like if you were to take two magnets and put them real close to a thin fabric that's magnetized between them, you would probably see tiny holes appear in that. Probably can't predict them, probably real hard to figure out what those are and control them, but those holes that are being torn through, that's gravity. Gravity is literally these two objects exerting force on each other through the space-time continuum. So now we have these tunnels opened up between two objects. Call them micro wormholes. So these micro wormholes opened up between these two objects. They're not static. They're not stationary. They're transitory. They open and they close. And the other ones open and they close. And these open and they close. So what you see on the outside is an electron appearing in two places at once. It looks like it's moving all over the place. It's not. It's just tiny tubes opening and closing. So now you have these tubes that open and close. The energy that's released when they open and close could be dark energy. And the fact that they're closing could be dark matter. Imagine a bigger tube, one that's 100 feet round, and suddenly that tube collapses. It creates a vacuum, and it sucks things together. On the other side, when they push out and they create the tube, they're displacing volume, and they're causing a different kind of effect to occur. And I think that contraction and expansion and contraction of tubes, collapsing, creating vacuums, pushing out, collapsing back in, that's what we're feeling when we talk about the gravitational effects. So we have these objects using a force to attract each other. Call that gravity if you want. I submit that that's another kind of force. It's ripping holes in the space-time fabric continuously, all over the place. Billions and trillions and quadrillions of these tubes opening and closing through every piece of matter in the universe. And these tubes are opening small and they're opening big. The bigger the object, the more the tubes. I don't think that they're any bigger. They could be longer. There could be many more of them. And that's going to give you the greater or lesser of the gravitational pulls. But that tube itself that's gravity. That's the opening of these tubes is your dark energy. The closing of them, the opening and closing, your dark energy. The fact that they're being open and the tubes themselves collapsing, that's your dark matter. And so I think what you have a completely different way of looking at things. And I think it explains a lot. Now, to test this theory, there's all these people doing quantum computing right now. And they're creating these special kind of cells that are supposed to do quantum computing. And I wonder if you were to measure the gravitational forces of what they're doing, if gravity is changing one way or another. I suspect they're preventing those tubes from being open. I have no way of proving that. I don't know that we can measure that. But I have a feeling that they're changing gravity because they're controlling when the electrons are opening and closing, which should by default be actually messing with the space-time fabric. Again, this is just a thought. I'd be curious if anyone with brains in this area, if they read this or hear this, if what they think, where I've gone wrong. But I have a feeling that this could be something fairly significant, and it's a completely different way of looking at things that maybe we haven't thought of before. Again, this is Random Thoughts. Not an expert, just an idea. Thanks.